Alright guys, so we are back with Julius Caesar Act 5, the final act of the whole thing. We first get to see Antony and Octavius. They're there at Philippi, and they see Brutus and Cassius coming towards them, and they're like really surprised by this. They thought that they would have to go and meet them, like Cassius said, but remember, Brutus is the one who was like, no, we'll go and fight them at Philippi. So they're there, and they're surprised to see them. And Antony says, they're all show, just trying to show up and make them scared. They're really nothing to actually be scared of. And so he goes, okay, Octavius, you go over there, you take your men to the left, I'll take my men over here. And immediately Octavius is like, no, not doing that. I'll take my men to the right, you do whatever you're gonna do. Again, we're still seeing some, strife between them. And that's when we move over, we see Brutus and Cassius. They're all gonna go, talk. I don't know, you have a chat before you fight each other in war, I guess. They're all gonna go talk to each other. And they immediately start to insult each other. Let's see. Sorry, I have notes. Alright, so they start teasing each other about, words and being big talkers, and that's when Cassius references Antony's speech from Caesar's funeral. The best speech of the entire play that I love. So he starts talking about how they're flatterers, they're big talkers, that kind of thing. And that makes Cassius real mad, and he basically turns to Brutus and says, if you'd have let me kill this guy way back when we killed Caesar, this wouldn't be happening right now. So he blames Brutus for all of this. I think he's not wrong. So anyway, Octavius swears that he's going to avenge Caesar by killing every last one of the conspirators, and he calls them all traitors. Also, sidebar, at this point they're calling Octavius Caesar, so just, be prepared for that. So anyway, Brutus says he won't be killed by a traitor, Octavius won't be killed by a traitor unless he, kills himself, because he's a traitor. So, more insults back and forth. It's kind of silly. Cassius calls Octavius a schoolboy. He calls Mark Antony a massacre and reveler, he's this big party dude. And then they get tired of insulting each other and they decide they're gonna actually go do some fighting. So they all kind of wander off to their own camps. That's when Cassius has a conversation with Messala, a kind of a sidebar, telling him that it's his birthday. Why we need to know this, I don't know. But he talks about omens. He talks about how he doesn't really believe in omens, but if there was ever a good day to die, why wouldn't it be your birthday? He talks about how he saw eagles feasting from the men's hands, before they fought, and how good everything was, but now he sees, ravens following them, these bad omens of death. And basically he's not feeling too great about all of this. And so Cassius says to Brutus, they talk a little bit before they go their separate ways. Cassius says, the gods today stand friendly that we may, lovers in peace, lead on our days to age. So hopefully if the gods are good, they'll get to live to old age and not die here on the battlefield. But just in case that doesn't pan out, they should say their goodbyes now. So they go ahead, they say goodbye to one another. Cassius asks Brutus what he's going to do if they lose. Brutus says that he won't kill himself because that's for cowards, and he'll let the gods do with him as they please. And Cassius is upset that Brutus would let himself be taken prisoner and led back to Rome in chains, but Brutus assures him that's not going to happen. That one way or another, they're going to figure out how this whole thing will pan out by the end of the day. So, scene 2. It's a tiny little scene where we're talking, we see Brutus handing off a letter to Messala, telling him to go give this note to Cassius's troops. This is where you should be really remembering, Shakespeare letter, danger. Remember, anytime someone tries to give a letter, bad things happen. It's not going to go well. So this isn't gonna go well, spoiler alert. So Cassius, he tells Cassius's men to basically make an attack. He feels like Octavius has a weak spot in his army and they need to attack him right then and there. So cut to probably a few hours later, where we are in scene 3 with Cassius and his men are fleeing because they're not doing great. So they get the orders, they go, they attack too soon, it doesn't go well for them, and now his men are starting to flee. Cassius even catches one of them and kills the deserter. And so it's not great. So this is where things are gonna get real misinterpreted and you're all gonna get real mad at it, but it is what it is, so just deal with it. So Cassius ends up seeing his tents on fire. He thinks Antony's men are there surrounding him, that they're all gonna die. And so Pindarus, one of his men, tells him to flee, but of course Cassius won't. He needs to see this thing through. So instead, he sends Titinius, one of his men, to go see if that army is friendly or not. And because his eyesight is not so great, he tells Pindarus to go climb up in a tree and see what happens to Titinius when he greets these other men. And at this point, Cassius is feeling pretty gosh darn deflated. He's saying, this day I breathed first, time is come round, and where I did begin, there I shall end. My life is run his compass. So again, that kind of full circle imagery. His birthday is also his death day. And so again, we should be having warning lights happening here. We're gonna have like a weird game of telephone to figure out if these men are actually good or not. We have Titinius going to see if they're good. We have Pindarus waiting to see what happens to Titinius to then relay that to Cassius. So it's not great. All right, again, misinterpretation is gonna really play a big part here. Pindarus tells Cassius that the men surround Titinius, they shout at him, and they gather him up. He's been taken. Cassius tells him to come down from the tree, and that he's a coward for living so long and seeing one of his friends die before him. So he asks Pindarus to kill him. Which, without any kind of question or, argument about it, he does so immediately. Then he leaves. That's it. The end. That's when Titinius shows back up because he's not captured. Those weren't Antony's men. They were Brutus's men, and they were all excited to be reunited with him. Again, misinterpretation. So, at this point, war status update. Brutus's men have overtaken Octavius's men, but Antony's men have overtaken Cassius's men. So there's not very many of Cassius's people left, but there's more of Brutus's people. Anyway, people will show back up. Titinius is there, Masala's there. They see Cassius dead. They cry about it a little bit. They're upset. He was their, friend. And so they also give him this crown. You should be thinking of the crown that Mark Antony tried to give to Caesar all the way back in Act 1. Brutus told him to give him this crown of victory. He lays it on his dead body. And then, then Titinius kills himself, because, he's sad. So he kills himself, and that's when Brutus shows up. He sees both of these people dead, and he immediately exclaims, "O Julius Caesar, thou art mighty yet, thy spirit walks abroad and turns our swords in our own proper entrails." Because remember, Caesar's ghost said he was going to meet Brutus here at Philippi, and he's seeing that work played out here, basically saying that Caesar's ghost is the cause for all of this. So Brutus mourns Cassius a little bit, and then he rallies his men for a second battle. That's when we get to scene 4. So, again, a tiny little scene. But in scene 4, we have Cato and Lucilius, some of Brutus's men, and they're captured. And when they're captured, Cato starts proclaiming who he is as a proud Roman, and they kill him immediately. And then you have Lucilius, who claims to be Brutus. And then the men are like, oh, we can't kill him, because Brutus is kind of important. So they bring him to Mark Antony. Mark Antony's like, that's not Brutus. And Lucilius is like, that's right, I'm not, and you're never going to catch him. Ha ha ha. So they say, well, he's kind of a noble prisoner. Don't kill him. We could use him later. Take him away. And then they have to go find what happened to the real Brutus. They need to figure out if he's alive or dead or not. Then we get to our final scene. All right. Act 5, Scene 5. The last of Brutus's men are weak and defeated. There's only a handful of them left. They're kind of hanging out on this rock on the hillside, regrouping. And while they're sitting there resting, Brutus leans over and he whispers something to one of his men, Clitus, and he says, Clitus immediately, we don't get to hear what he says, but Clitus immediately says, no, I possibly couldn't, no way, never, not in my entire life, I'd rather kill myself. And then Brutus moves on. He goes ahead and he asks Dardanius the same thing. Again, we don't get to hear it, but he has the same reaction as Clitus. Then they talk to then we turns and talks to this other guy, Voluminus, and he says that he's seen Caesar's ghost on the battlefield, and he knows that his time has come. He knows it's his time to die, and we find out that he's been asking these men to help him kill himself. So he gives this final little speech. He says, "My heart doth joy, and that yet in all my life I found no man, but he was true to me. I shall have glory by this losing day, more than Octavius and Mark Antony by this vile conquest shall attain unto. So fare you well at once, for Brutus's tongue hath almost ended his life's history. Night hangs upon mine eyes. My bones would rest that have but labored to attain this hour." So basically, he's ready to die. And that he's going to get more honor from this day doing what he knew was for the best of Rome than Mark Antony and Octavius will get in defeating them. So all the men kind of start to leave, and they beg him to come with them, and he says no. And he asks another guy, Strato, to stay and help him die. After some arguing back and forth, Strato agrees to help kill him. He says that, so Strato's gonna hold the sword and Brutus is gonna run on it and stab himself, basically, and that's what happens. Then Antony and Messala and Octavius, they all show up and they see this. Messala asks what happened, and Strato says that Brutus is free from the bondage you are in. The conquerors can but make a fire of him, for Brutus only overcame himself, and no man else hath honor by his death. So Brutus wouldn't allow anyone else the honor of killing him. He killed himself. So this whole thing is over. He's not going to be a prisoner in chains like Cassius was worried about. And he's not killing himself like in a cowardly kind of way. You should definitely stop for a moment and think about the differences in the two deaths. We have Cassius's death where there's a misunderstanding. He thinks it's all over and he asks someone to kill him and they kill him immediately. Then we have Brutus's death where he knows it's over and he knows he's done right by Rome and that he doesn't want to give anyone else the honor of like killing him. So he kills himself for that reason, when we have several people who won't do it because they love him too much. So definitely some differences between Brutus and Cassius. Anyway, so the whole thing ends there. Octavius promises to take care and all of Brutus's men, well, like, you know, the handful that are left. And Antony gives his final little speech. He says, "This was the noblest Roman of them all," meaning Brutus. "All the conspirators, save only he, did what they did in envy of great Caesar." So all the other conspirators were envious of Caesar, and that's why they killed him, but not Brutus. He only in a general honest thought and common good to all made one of them. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, this was a man. So he really truly honors Brutus. He really thinks he was a good man. He knows that he did what he thought was for the best of Rome, and that's all anyone can really say of him. And then the play is over. The end. You made it. Great. Okay, so finish your packets. Be thinking about how this all plays out. Be thinking about those themes that we talked about. Finish your notes, and you're going to do something with them a little later. All right, bye guys.